Welcome to episode 1 of The Last Caboose. On this channel, I plan to share my passion for trains, and in particular the effect of the railroad industry had on forming the great country of Canada. I grew up in Western Canada and was always keenly aware of the role the Canadian Pacific Railway had on shaping the country and forming this great nation. In the first of what I hope to be many playthroughs of Transport Fever 2, I am starting on the eastern edge of one of the greatest engineering challenges of the 19th century, crossing Canada's Rocky Mountains. In the 1870s, much of Western Canada had not been explored, let alone inhabited. However, for Canada's first Prime Minister, Sir John A. Macdonald, creating a transcontinental railway was imperative to hold the young country of Canada together and thwart any ambitions from the American neighbors to the south about gaining more territory. It was thus chosen that a southern route through the Rockies was preferred, a much more difficult route that at the time of the railway had entered what is now Alberta hadn't even been surveyed. Many challenges lay ahead for these nation builders. We are going to start our journey here in Fort Calgary. After years of marching, the Northwest Mounted Police overwintered just south of present-day Calgary in Fort Macleod in 1874. In the spring of 75, they were tasked to set up a fort at the confluence of the Bow and Elbow River on the traditional meeting grounds for the local First Nations, the Blackfoot, the Nakota, and the Tsuut'ina. This is where we join their story. So, I'd like to thank you guys all for tuning in and watching this first episode of The Last Caboose. Here we are in Fort Calgary at the confluence of the Elbow, which is just on the southern edge of your screen, and the Bow River. Now I've created this map on Map Editor using real-world height data from the Canadian government. As many of you know, Transport Fever 2 leaves a little bit desired for creating rivers. So the Bow River actually ends just west of Calgary and just kind of goes into a valley. Oop. Gotta get my ASFD keys here. There we go. And we will have to add the water later. But let's take a tour around the map. So to the north of Calgary, we have Airdrie. We have industry set up on this map. I will be doing it as a playthrough in tycoon mode. In future, I might just do recreations. We'll have to see what your comments say. Maybe I'll do a combination of the two. But as we move to the south, we have the town of Okotoks from Calgary. And then if we head down the Bow Valley, which is just here, we have the town of Cochrane, which is a traditional sawmill town. That will present one of our first industry opportunities for us. And if we move further west into the mountains, we have some iron mining, which actually did not exist, is not historically accurate. I will try and keep a lot of this historically accurate. I will be delivering a lot of history stories along the way through our build through at key points in time. But some things for the game, in order to make money and have a profitable playthrough, I've had to fudge a little bit. But if we move on through, we do have a quarry and a construction material plant accurately placed outside of Lacta's Arc. As you move up the Bow Valley, Canmore is a traditional coal mining town, and we do have coal there, and we also have coal just further up the valley. We have another iron mine up the Cascade Creek Valley. However, that did not exist. There was a mine up there, but it was not iron. But I need iron on the map again. And then we are going to finish in Banff on the main line of the Canadian Pacific Railway. And we will continue westward in future playthroughs, but this is today's playthrough. Now, if we come further south of Calgary and to the west, later on in the century and much further into the 20th century, we will be exploiting the oil and gas industry I believe Kipling said it best, that Alberta has all hell for a basement, and we still very much rely on exporting raw natural gas and oil to the rest of the world to make an economy in Alberta. And Okotoks has goods factory simply because I need goods on the map to supply to towns. So, shall we get started? I think, like I first said, I think we should start up here in Cochrane. And I think we should start by connecting the logging camp northwest of Cochrane to the sawmill in Cochrane. Now, I think let's just get into it. So first up here, I would like to set up a truck stop. And so we do that by going into our street builder, clicking on buildings, and I will choose one platform. It's all we need, and we will rotate it accordingly. Shift M and N rotates it finely, and M and M will give you rough rotations or larger increments. I'm going to place it here just at the very top, and I'm going to go in, and since we're starting out only with horse and cart, I know that these cargo facilities are going to be jam-packed, and we will be losing cargo, as any overloaded cargo facility will just kind of lose cargo. Now, I could do this as a cul-de-sac and force the horses to come in and go out, or it could be just a straight up turnaround right in here. Now, I think we will do a turnaround. This is my preferred way of building these things. I think it's a cleaner look. I don't think it's more efficient unless you have multiple routes, but I do enjoy the look. Now, let's go and build ourselves a street. And we're going to use our small country roads, as horse and buggies only do about 20 kilometers an hour. So there's no worry about speed limits on roads in this playthrough at this moment. So I think the only way to do this properly, oh boy, let's make that flat, is to, yep, there we go. Does it look nice? It does. And we'll slide this one into here. Perfect. And on the other end, we could set up a very similar thing, but I think in the interest, we are not going to be delivering anything from the sawmill. The only thing that requires planks right now, I believe, is an airdrie, and in Calgary also requires planks at the tool mill. But since I am not going to set up those lines until we have the railway through, and the railway never got to Calgary until 1881, so we have several years until we're going to worry about delivering a lot of these raw resources, or semi-planed resources, I guess, as it would be, to their final destinations. So I think I'm just going to set up a drop station in front of here, and now we need to place a depot, and I think I do plan on setting up a truck stop right here, and I don't want the AI to build on it, so I think I'm going to put my depot where I'm going to have my future truck stop. So I think that is a good spot right there. We'll put it in, and now we need to create our first line. So our first line is going to go from the sawmill to the Cochrane Annex, and we'll change the name of that here shortly. Let's change this to Cochrane Log Haulage, and let's change the color to something that's loggy. Now I do have a mod. The vanilla game only comes with probably about a dozen to 20 colors, and so I've got a mod which allows more line colors. I just prefer it because I like to keep my lines straight. I also like to name things, so I'm going to name this Cochrane Forest. There we go. Now, let's get some vehicles on this and we can start playing the game. Now, I think the best, we do have let's go down to cargo. Let's choose some cargo. We have the horse-drawn carriage. We have a covered horse-drawn carriage and a horse-drawn carriage with side stakes. Now, side stakes, they only take a few things. Mainly, they don't take goods and finished products. They only take raw resources. As we can see, except for fuel, they happen to take that. I think what we're going to do is we're going to use the side stakes, as I don't think the covered wagon really suits. Now, I think we're going to go big on this first one. We should put in about 20, and we'll set them to our first line. And I think we can press play. What I am going to do is I'm going to slow down the date to a quarter speed, meaning that each year is going to take roughly 48 minutes. There's 12 minutes at normal speed to a year, and so I'm going to slow the game down. So now that we've got that line set up, I think what we can do, we'll let that bed in, I'll come back and we'll revisit it, is we're actually going to set up a full line from the grain farm here in Calgary to the food processing plant, and then feed our finished products into Calgary. So let's go ahead and do that. So again, we're going to use the same system. We're going to, oh, one day I'll find my keys properly. Or not. That's M, there's N. There we go. Now, I am going to make this maximum length and then continue to extend it. I think that's pretty straight there. And let's go in and configure it. Now, in the the mid 1800s, late 1800s, Calgary really didn't exist as we see it on the map. It was a collection of, it was a fort set up by the Northwest Mounted Police and later taken over by the Hudson's Bay Company and used for trading with the First Nations people. However, the town quickly grew, and by 1881 it had amalgamated into a town, and that's when the railway, of course, arrived, and with the arrival of the railway brought many opportunities, many people, and Alberta became known as, come on, curve. Sometimes these roads just don't want to curve. Alberta became known as one of the great breadbaskets of Canada. This road is not cooperating. That's the thing with Transport Fever 2, and the Transport Fever 1 for that matter, is sometimes things just didn't cooperate for you. You just got to keep trying, and there we go, we've got that one in. So really traditionally, Alberta, right from the get-go, was seen as a great wheat producer. Now here, since we are going to be reusing the goods here, I think we're going to build definitely, now I can squeeze one in here. Now, could I squeeze one in with two platforms here? Yes, I can. Now this is advantageous because I hit both industries. I just don't know if it will be big enough, but I think we can work on adjusting the rates instead of adjusting the size of the platform, because I do like the placement of this. So let's give it a shot. And now, to finish this, we're going to go over to Calgary. Now you can see Calgary demands some food. There is a little bit of commercial activity over on the eastern edge of town, which is now what we call the East Village in Calgary. But at the time it would just been 9th Street or Main Street. So let's place just a drop there. That's all you ever need to drop off materials in town or drop off finished goods in town. And now I think we're going to place a depot now. I've been kind of toying with the idea of where to place our depots, but I think, why don't we place our depot right off of the edge of Main Street here. And I will show you why in the future. Calgary has a train line that runs through the center of town. And to achieve this, to be historically accurate-ish, I would like to do the same. And to do that, obviously, at some point when we start running the train, I'm going to have to destroy a good portion of this town. So I'd like to grow it enough that I can destroy it enough, if that makes sense. So I would also like to reserve some of the town. So a building like this will force the AI not to build in that one position, and I will be able to delete that and at least save deleting one or two extra houses and or industries. So let's set up a new line, and let's go all the way down from our farm to our food processing plant here in Calgary, and we'll just make that one line, and we'll make it golden wheat colored. If we have any orange, yeah, there's no orange that really works. I think that is our best one. Whoops. Now let's go to our line manager again. Let's go for Calgary grain haulage. And now let's set up another new line from the food processing plant into the city of Calgary. Food is kind of a browny color. We'll go with that color. It's more of a pink brown, but we'll go with it. And we'll go Calgary grain delivery. Now I like to name my lines haulage for any raw resources and delivery for any finished resources going into town. It's just something that keeps it straight for me. And now let's go to our depot, and I think again we want to go big on this. Now this carries grain, however it does not carry food. So if we were to double up the route and make a multiple drop situation, we would not be able to use this. But I think for this one, I'm going to use, because it carries a capacity of 5, and it carries a capacity of 5. Now, later on in the game, as you get specialized vehicles, they tend to carry more, but I think it makes more sense to cover the grain as it's being carried into the food processing plant. So I'm going to buy 20 of these, and I'm going to set them all to the grain haulage. And then I think I'm going to buy 10 of these. Now, probably a few less. Let's go with 6. And I'll set them to the food delivery. Grain haulage. Grain delivery. Oh, I've named became confused there. It is not grain we're doing. We are delivering food. Again, finding my keys here. Food. I do record these at night, so it is very dark. I cannot see my keyboard a lot of the time, and well, that's just something that you'll have to bear with me. So now we've got all of our horses. Let's watch them come out. Off they go down to the farm. Let's take a little peek at these guys. They are something that you would see on the Oregon Trail. Calgary also is all very well known for the Calgary Stampede, the greatest outdoor show on earth. And one of the central and the pinnacle events of the Calgary Stampede, the rodeo part, is the chuck wagon races. And these kind of remind me of the chuck wagons. I believe that they're based on. However, the chuck wagons they race today are a streamlined race car version of it, and they have 8 thoroughbred horses sitting out front instead of 4. Probably, I wouldn't say they're old nags, but they are probably a workhorse more than a thoroughbred racehorse. Chuck wagon racing is actually quite interesting. They take a lot of old, retired racehorses who would be destined for the glue factory and save them. They do have a reputation of crashing and having some issues with having to put down horses live in front of a live audience. It is unfortunate, however, they do provide an outlet for retired racehorses to continue racing, and I know that the drivers and the teams are very much in love with their animals, so I do enjoy that every single year that it comes to the Calgary Stampede. I'll watch it either live or on TV. So now we've got that. We've got a big conga line of covered wagons heading down to the grain farm, heading down to the food processing plant. Now the food processing plant, what we could do with that line, just so, well, I don't want to cause a big hiccup, so I'm actually going to leave it. But what I was going to say is we could take this, manage the line, and put it so it would be wait until full. However, I believe they're not sharing the same platform at this point, but because this happens to be in platform 2, and the other one's probably on platform 1, yes. So it could be done, wait until full, but I don't want to block up the entrance and the exit, waiting for food, blocking the grain, not being able to get it. It just kind of creates a big, so a couple of these horses will go out empty. Now it does take 2 grain for every 1 food produced. As you can see here, we've got 2 to 1. So we need a rate of 200 coming from the farm here, which it is supplying to, or it produces 200 to supply the demand for the food processing plant here in Calgary. But Calgary, if we go to consumers, is not shipping any right now. Can we click on Calgary and see how much they demand? They demand 17 right now, so there's no reason to maximize this at this moment. All we're looking to do is cover the expenses of our loan, and our loan expenses is roughly about $50,000 a year. In fact, it's not roughly, it is $50,000 a year. It's a 1% mortgage rate in Transport Fever 2. So we will definitely have to cover that, and hopefully now looks like we have, our horses are just getting up to the forest here in Cochrane, north of Cochrane. This would be the Sundry area, which actually does. Now, as you can see, they've chosen just to go in here and turn around and not use our lovely loop that I've created. So let's force their hand, and let's put a waypoint in at the end of our circle. Let's go in, let's manage this line, and after 7th Street, which is what we know to be our sawmill, let's put them in there, and now you can see that they're going to come around in a nice circle. Now you did see that the station is overloaded and some items are going to be lost. At this point in the game, I'm not too worried about that. As I said, I'm just trying to set up some initial lines to cover the cost of our loan. So by the time that the railroad arrives in 1881, we will be able to spend and take out some loan and start connecting our first places. Now there is another fairly easy route. In fact, it's a super easy route, as these two are side by side. Now in real life, these are side by side. The quarry is right beside the concrete plant out by Lac des Arcs. So this is not gamey. This is how you actually expect to find industries in the real world. A lot of the time is they'll set up the processing plants very near the extraction plants, just for ease of transportation. But then you have to transport the finished goods to where they're going. So let's see if we can get this one going, just to make us a little bit of money. Now here I want to be careful, because the Bow River is right beside us. In fact, it is a lake right here at this point. As I said to you guys earlier, I will try to simulate the Bow River with some assets. Paint is not the best, as it can slow down the performance, and we are on a large map. So I will try to simulate it using an asset that I found, but I have found it quite tedious to use, so we'll attack that together in future episodes. So we're just going to put down a drop station, and here we're going to put down a turnaround station. It just needs to have one platform. Let's put the platform on the other side, turn it around, look in the dark for my keys. Now, I think this happens to be a good place. Let's get it lined up using M&M, shift it, and oh, there we go. That's exactly where it collides. We'll get it nice and close, more for looks than anything, but I do like the game to look nice. And we are going to collide back there, but it is such a short trip that I do not think we're going to be missing out on too many goods. Even into the future, we'll probably have very few, not trains, trucks on this, operating this. Now let's put this depot down here, just to get it a little bit out of the way, kind of make this more of an industrial area. And before I buy vehicles, what do you have to do? We'll set up another line, and let's call this Canmore. Let's call it Exshaw, because it's Exshaw. That's really where it is. Stone haulage. And let us not name it, we've already named it. We want to color it, and we'll color it stone color. So a nice deep dark gray, maybe one up just to make it a little bit lighter. And let's buy some vehicles. Does this carry stone? Yeah, it does. Let's buy, let's say 6 vehicles. And let's set it on there. And they'll be going along now. Let's go check in on an original route here. We should have some logs starting to come back. All we've been doing right now is sending vehicles out but not making any money on them, but they are starting to bring in raw resources very slowly. As you can see, we've burned through about $4.3 million, or no, that would be $3.3 million of our original loan, and we are allowed to take up to $10 million, but I'd like to try and avoid taking out any more loan in the early part of the game, just to reserve that amount of loan for when the railroad does arrive in Calgary in 1881. So, as you can see, all the costs are coming out. We're paying maintenance on our vehicles. None of our vehicles are making any money yet. We do have our first wheat load coming back in to the food processing plant. Now, if we look and we click on our line, the statistics, and let's just see what we can see. It's saying that we have a rate of 96, which is actually a lot higher than I anticipated it. And the food delivery has a throughput of 21. That should be increased, but right now we only need it to produce 17. So 21 is more than adequate. Now, any extra production that we get at the food processing plant will go to wherever it needs, but we will only transport what the needs of the map are, and that we have hooked up. So that is a nice change from Transport Fever 1, where you do not have to complete entire supply chains. You can do what we're doing in Cochrane and just deliver it to the processing plant, not deliver the finished good to anywhere. It makes things a little bit more realistic and easy to set up. The sawmill is there. It's not like it won't take raw goods and not ship them on. We just don't know where they're shipping them. So I think that will do it for freight in this episode. I would like to get a little bit of a passenger service. Now, as I said, the railroad didn't show up until 1870 or 1881, so I think our passenger service should just be horse and carriage, stagecoach line, essentially. Now, There's several ways we could do this. We could build a bus system in each town, take it out to a central terminus, then connect the terminuses and have buses come in and out and feed it. But there are so few people, I intentionally went around when I was creating this map and deleted back the cities to make them quite small, because obviously in 1875 there was nobody living out in Western Canada. In fact, these towns are probably 4 times bigger than they actually were at this time. They did grow quickly, but they only grew quickly after the railroad arrived in town. But for the game mechanics to work, we have to accept a little unrealism. So I think what I'm going to do is just create a series of single bus stops in 3 cities that are connected. Now, I haven't connected any cities to the west because there is a really famous old Banff coach road, and it was actually not started until 1907. And it was started and completed in 1907, so I would like to make that build with you guys at that time, and I'll tell you about the history at that time. But we will just connect Airdrie, Calgary, and Okotoks together using a stagecoach line. So let's put a bus stop here in Calgary. Let's put one here in Airdrie. Now, you can see where the industry is, and any buildings that don't have industry on them or demand a good demand are going to be residential. So I'm going to put this. We do have some residents growing off to the east side of Airdrie. We're probably not going to collect them. If I go down here, oh, you know what? I can hit them all if I put them bus stop right here in Airdrie. So that's what we're going to do. And then we're going to come all the way down here into Okotoks. This is not going to be a very frequent line. These people, in the game world, they're going to be waiting years for a stagecoach to arrive to take them on to their destination. But I think what we'll do in Okotoks, all the residents seem to be to the southeast of the town, so I'm going to put in one there. And I'm going to help out Okotoks a little bit, just so that the stagecoach can loop around and doesn't make a silly turn. I'll just complete their road there. And let's set up our first line. And let's go from Okotoks to Calgary. Zoom in. Now, it being a large map, the distances are immense. Now, I think I would like to use this really deep red for all passenger service, intercity passenger service. This is the deep red that the Canadian Pacific Railway used throughout most of its history, all the way up until I think the 1950s, and even then it kept it in much of its logo, and then it wasn't until recently that it's changed to a more bright red. But this is the red I'd like to use for all intercity passenger services, unless we are going to branch out into a different line. So I think this is the precursor of the Canadian Pacific Railroad. This line probably never existed, but I think we can fudge it just to make a little bit of money. And we will call this the Prairie Express. And by no means is it an express, but it's certainly a lot faster than the walking that they'd have to do right now. So it's not an express to you and me, but to people in 1875, it was an absolute boon. So I think because of the distance on the line, we are going to just jam it full. Now these guys will space out, and they will look better, but to start out, we will have a conga line of stagecoaches. Let's watch them come out of the depot here. We have a couple going into Calgary immediately. We'll have a few going here and there. This is how they do space them out. And there we go. So hopefully we'll set up some intercity travel, and some of our cities will start growing, and that will be absolutely excellent. Now, here we have Fort Calgary. This is just some assets that I've placed down. Now, Fort Calgary did last as a working fort until the early 1900s. At that point, I will be demolishing it, and it was used as industrial land, and then it has returned in the 1970s. There's an interpretive center set up, and then it did end up being rebuilt in the late 1990s. Super interesting place to visit. It is a museum now. It has suffered many floods. The flood of the 2013 definitely devastated quite a bit of their infrastructure, but I do believe 11 years, 12 years on now, and they're doing fairly well. I guess it's not 11 or 12, it's 9. So, here we go. Now let's look into this. Let's see what we can see. Wow, really? I can see all those lines apparently. Oh, I guess, yeah, I can. So, if you ever find that you're seeing too many lines because we can just see a corner, we can use this. And if you get the top-down view, you're just going to see what you can see. So, now press all the buttons because you can't see your keyboard. And now we're looking at a line rate of 120. For this farm, the most we can ever take from it is 200. So we're transporting a good amount, about half of what we need to transport. Now that being said, this food processing plant, that's the tools, here's the food processing plant, can make 100. So it will take one farm to upgrade to the first level. Second farm will need to be added to upgrade to that level, and then more farms will be needed to add. Now I will toy with the idea of entering sandbox mode and adding more industries to the map. It depends on the performance of the map as we move on. I would like to play this all the way into the late stages of the game, way into the early 2000s, maybe even into the future, just depending on how the playthrough is going. So we'll have to toy with the idea of adding more farms, more everything. But to begin the game, obviously, we wanted to stay fairly simple. Now, what I think we should do is we should find out where this guy is going. He's going to Johnson Street. Who knows where Johnson Street is? Will he take a left or will he take a right? Excellent. He is taking a left. So he is heading off to Airdrie. And I think that should about do it. Oh, actually, you know what? Before we call it an episode, I would like to head out and check the line statistics on this one. It says we have a rate of 47. So if we look here, the lumber mill will take 200, and that means it will take 400 from a forest to upgrade it. And the forest is producing 400, so that's perfect. It will take all of the raw resources from this forest to upgrade it to the next level, and then we have to add more forests in. We do have multiple forests that we can attach to these things, so I think one thing, let's look at our finances. Let's look how we're doing. We are starting to make 92,000 a year. Now, as you can see, the years are a little bit strange because we are playing on quarter speed. So every 12 minutes we're making 94,000. Our interest is 50,000 per year-ish, per 12-minute period. So I think what we want to do is we are now very much covering the cost of our loan, and we are going to be making some money. So I think we're in a good spot to add some more vehicles to this line. And it seems crazy. It is a giant conga line of trucks right now, or horse carriages, but I am going to deselect them and clone every single vehicle, putting 40 vehicles onto that line. Just simply, it is a hugely long line, and I would like to make as much money as I can on it. Now, do we have anyone currently waiting to go anywhere? No, the AI has not found out that we are going in. It may take a little bit for the AI to demand route between the cities, but hopefully that is not a huge waste of money. It is an experiment. They are slow moving, but we'll see what we get. Now, I think we should ride a bus up. Should we ride one of the stagecoaches up to Airdrie and take a little ride along with him as we conclude this episode? The next episode, we'll see us kind of massage our routes. Maybe, oh yeah, sorry, I keep trying to end, but I keep remembering that we've set up other lines. Maybe we'll look into starting some routes here. Yeah, see, this line is easily taking care of everything that's being spit out onto the, let's take a look at the line statistics. It's got a rate of 111 and it produces 400, so it will start to overfill, but I don't think I want to add any more vehicles onto this little tiny line. Just doesn't make any sense. So I think what we could do is we have no raw resources that we can deliver into these towns, but we may be able to connect these towns just with the beginnings of a road. We might actually hook up the sawmill to the Bragg Creek, to the forest, to the Bragg Creek sawmill. We might even go all the way to that forest and try and get this sawmill. Well, it won't upgrade until we ship it out, but there will be lots of demand for it. So if we can just set up our raw resources chains, we will add this wheat farm into here and maybe even carry food up to Airdrie and down to Okotoks and start growing them. So I think that will be it for that episode. Maybe we'll take a ride along through the prairies down to Okotoks with this guy here. So thank you very much for watching episode 1. I hope you enjoy it. I am looking forward to coming back and giving you more history of the area as we play through this map. I will make all the maps and save games available, as well as a mod list on my channel in the descriptions below. And I will link to my Steam account so you can download the save games and play along with me. I will appreciate any comments or criticisms that you have. Keep them nice. Obviously, we live in an era of being mean on the internet, and I'd like to change that. I'm all about positivity. We're all here because we love trains. You wouldn't be watching this if you didn't. So hopefully in the next couple of episodes, we can get some trains on and we can see some cabooses. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.